our Premier League insider. That is David Ornstein, who joins us this afternoon. David, before we get to the news of the possible replacement, let's speak about what happened. It was kind of incredible how quickly this transpired. It was the fifth defeat that they suffered, of course, at home to Chelsea on Saturday. Marinakis actually left his seat in the director's box at the hour mark and then wasn't even in the stadium at full time. Why do you think Postecoglou wasn't given a little bit more time at Forest?
Well, the stark reality, Cara, is this is going to go down as the worst permanent tenure in Premier League history to date, and also the worst, shortest, in Premier League history, but the worst in Nottingham Forest history. So not good on behalf of Ange Postecoglou, nor on behalf of the club, Evangelos Marinakis. I think many people would say it was a major risk from the very beginning because he was such a stylistic change from Nuno Espirito Santo, pretty much polar opposites. In terms of so many of the metrics, and that would have set alarm bells ringing. And Nuno had great relationships with these players. He'd led them into Europe. They'd formed real bonds. And Ange Postecoglou had no time to work with them on the training ground, no pre-season. It was straight into the action. He had no real opportunity to connect with the fan base. And when he spoke in his media interviews, I think it grated on them that he often spoke of the time at Tottenham and previous job Celtic, also speaking of how he was going to win things all the time. But I think they wanted to see that on the pitch. It didn't happen immediately with the defeat against Arsenal, which you could say was expected. But then when they succumbed in the League Cup away to Swansea, having been 2-0 up and lost 3-2, that was a bitter blow. Also lost the lead at Real Betis in the Europa League, and then came Sunderland at home. That was a huge blow, but not as bad as Midtjylland in the Europa League, when there were chants from the home crowd, sections of it anyway, of sacked in the morning. And Evangelos Marinakis always listens to his supporters. He makes his own decisions, but he does take their views into consideration. He's always wanted to make them happy. And I think the writing was on the wall. Newcastle, before the international break, defeat against them would have meant that they would have been looking at opportunities to possibilities to replace Ange Postecoglou if indeed a change was to be made. And he didn't go into the Chelsea game, as I understand it, having been told that he was going to be out if they lost. But I think it was pretty obvious, and the nature of that defeat and Evangelos Marinakis leaving his seat in the stand. There was a brief debrief by Ange Postecoglou in the dressing room, but then he was gone. He was told by George Sirianos of his fate, the global technical director, and then he was out into the car park and away. Marinakis had already left the stadium. And I think the fact they didn't have someone lined up immediately shows that this was a bit sooner than expected for Nottingham Forest. And then the process has begun. The new process, which we'll come on to talk about, is led by Edu and Sirianos, not Marinakis, who appointed Postecoglou given their personal relationship. So it was a pretty shocking situation. Sources I've spoken to at the club speak of how they were shocked at just how bad it was there, and the change really needed to be made, not using those big name signings, even in that last match, even in the squad. And so it leaves a lot of questions about what next for Ange Postecoglou and also for Forest.
Yeah, we'll wait to see what is next for Ange. As it comes to Forest, news reported by yourself this morning is that Sean Dyche is set to become the new manager at Nottingham Forest. His last job was with Everton, where he spent 2 years, but has been out of management since he was sacked in January, with Everton 1 point above the relegation zone at the time. Before that, he spent nearly 10 seasons at Burnley, leading the club to 2 Premier League promotions, their best ever finish, and European football for the first time since the 1960s. So what can you tell us about this seemingly imminent appointment?
My understanding tonight is that an agreement is pretty much done between Nottingham Forest and Sean Dyche. We're just waiting an announcement now. I think there was a very good chance it would happen today. That was the plan. The tragic news of the death of the son of former Nottingham Forest player Stuart Pearce, and a close teammate of Sean Dyche, may have affected the exact timing. I think it will be either tonight or tomorrow morning. And Sean Dyche will be coming in on a contract, we understand, until 2027. So it's not a short-term fix. They're looking to go forward with him. And I think they found in their thorough process that was conducted by Edu as the global head of football at Forest and the ownership group, but also George Sirianos, the global technical director, that he was the most suitable fit. Sean Dyche. Stylistic elements bring him closest to Nuno Espirito Santo than pretty much any other candidate in terms of the analysis that they've done on the data that shows his defensive strengths, his attacking game, the set pieces that were so crucial under Nuno, where Sean Dyche scores very well, whereas Ange Postecoglou didn't seem to focus on them nearly as much as the club would have liked, and it showed on the pitch. Many areas of Sean Dyche's background in terms of his character, his man management, his personality, what he achieved at Burnley, leading them into Europe, akin to what Nuno did at Nottingham Forest. Everton, where he saved them from relegation in a crisis. He's also living in the local area. His assistants, Ian Woan and Steve Stone, they're legends of Nottingham Forest. Dyche himself has a connection because he was a youth player at the club. He's Premier League experience, so he ticks so many boxes. And they'll think that he can actually ensure that they do have a successful season in domestic and European competition. They did speak to Roberto Mancini, but it, despite having some interest on his part, wasn't the right fit for them. Also, Marco Silva has a great relationship with Marinakis, and I think they would have been prepared to pay to get him out of his contract at Fulham. But I'm reporting this evening that that release clause is worth about £15 million. So it would have been a complicated process. It might not have been the right timing for Silva, and Fulham are going to try and renew his contract, which expires in the summer. So it's going to be Dyche that Nottingham Forest go with next, and they'll hope that he leads them to where they want to be, which is a successful 25 to 26 campaign.
All right, looking forward to that. His first Premier League game would be Bournemouth on Sunday. So we'll wait to learn a little bit more about how that develops and, of course, keep following David Ornstein's report. So, guys, before we get on to Dyche, the sacking of Postecoglou, surprise, not surprise? Was this the right decision? Yeah,
it was the right decision. It was the wrong appointment in the first place. And I think everybody could see what was going to come the minute he got brought into the club. From Nuno to Ange Postecoglou, two completely different styles of managers. And the players at Nottingham Forest are set up for a manager like Nuno. So it was never a good appointment, in my opinion.
So are they set up for a manager like Dyche?
They are. They are. It's very similar to the style. And David added a lot of good elements there and good things. And I think Steve Stone, Ian Woan, former assistants of Sean Dyche, they are Forest legends and supporters like that when there's some connection with the coaching team. I mean, quite honestly, you know, the football from Sean Dyche over the years is not stellar. It's not something that really excites me, to be honest with you. But his record speaks for itself. He keeps teams in the Premier League. He's got a bigger pool of players, I would say. I think he was restricted at Burnley, restricted at Everton with what was going on there. He did a brilliant job at Everton initially to stable that rocking ship at that football club. So, you know, whether it comes down to expectations of Marinakis. What is his expectation? Mm-hmm. Does he want Nottingham Forest to play good football and finish in the top 8 every season? 7th last year, then it's going to be difficult. Or does he want a stable, steady Premier League club every year? Then he's got the right guy. But I'm not sure what his expectations are longer term.
Well, it's a good question because they had a pretty good season under Nuno and then he was sent packing. So it's hard to read the minds of the owner, perhaps.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host of NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch more videos all season long. And for even more Premier League content, from original series to live matches, head over to Peacock.